Welcome everybody to the Microsoft Excel MO-200 exam series. My name is Chintan Patel from Benoni, South Africa. I'm a Microsoft Office 2019-365 specialist expert instructor. And what we're going to go through today is continuing the preparation for the MO-200 Excel exam, so you are better prepared for the MO-200 exam. You can take your Excel Associate certification, and you can then show to the world that you are a specialist in Excel. Good morning, Nirmala. Glad to have you back in the lesson. All right. So just a little bit of admin before we continue. Just want to say that if we haven't seen the previous videos, I have placed it up on my YouTube channel. It's still a pretty small YouTube channel. I do encourage you to subscribe to it. I'll be placing the link in the chat area that you can go and have a look at. Right, it's also in the emails that I sent out. The links are available. We also want to have a look at the exam objectives. So I always talk about the exam objectives in all of my lessons. So the exam objectives are what Microsoft is telling you to actually study. What for Microsoft Excel. So if you go through the exam objectives, so again, I'll post the link of the exam objectives in the chat area, or you can Google Microsoft Excel MO-200, and you should be able to get as the first set of search results the landing page for the MO-200 page. And you will then be able to find the skills outline or the exam objectives. And that will really tell you what you need to know for the Excel exam. There's no point in studying everything. All right. So there are two levels of Excel, the MO-200 exam, the MO-201 exam. After this MO-200, I will be doing the MO-201. I will also be doing every single Microsoft Office exam prep in the form of a video, in the form of live training. So you can, if you want to get every single certification for every Microsoft Office product, you can do so and become a specialist expert just like me. Doesn't mean you have to become a trainer, right? If you want to get every single certification behind your name, then go for it, right? Nothing is stopping you. It is the best proof in the world, the only internationally accredited program endorsed by Microsoft to show that you have a certain set of Office skills, a certain set of skills in an application that you can really brag about and show on your LinkedIn page, or show up on your website, show up on your CV. This is my social media channels. This is how you can get hold of me. A variety of ways to get hold of me. I always post content on here when I can. This week, actually starting tonight in South African time, I'm attending a conference by Certiport, the provider for Microsoft Office Specialist exams. They're holding a massive conference in the evening for all sorts of instructors worldwide. I received an invitation to attend, so I'll be attending that for the next 3 days, or 3 evenings actually, to see what's new in the world of Microsoft Office Specialist and their exams. So in the next lesson, I'll be giving feedback through these channels here, through these social media channels, on what the world is doing in terms of Microsoft Office Specialist. So again, this is just what I do, a whole lot of Office programs. I will make a separate video. I probably will make a separate video on how do we obtain these badges. What are they all about? What can we do with them? And if there's any more information about them, it will be communicated as a separate video. Right, we are using Microsoft Teams. So just get familiar with the controls that you have. Please make use of the chat window if you have any questions. Please keep your microphone on mute as well. If you're not going to be saying anything, you're welcome to keep your video on if you like. You can speak up as well if you have a question. If you have the raise your hand feature, I'm not sure what version of Teams we are all using, but if you have the feature available, please do make use of that if you have any questions or comments you'd like to talk about. And I think just here last week, a new feature released for a lot of Teams users. I'm one of them, where I can use a custom background. So you can see the custom background behind me. It's just a bunch of Excel logos. So this is a free image. It's a royalty-free image. I'm allowed to use it. I don't have to pay any royalties to use it actually, because I got it off a free image site. This is not a Googled image, right? So I talk more about that when we do the PowerPoint exam, when we do presentations on why you should not be using Google image search for your images. You should always be using royalty-free images for all your presentations. And I'll get to that when we do the PowerPoint exam preparation. Right, so this is just the chat area, what it looks like. Please do make full use of it throughout the lessons. So I have some questions that I'd like to ask. Let me jump straight into that. That's just a bit of the agenda. We're still busy with some of that. So if you're able to answer this, if you attended last week, or if you want to give it a try, maybe you saw my videos, let's try this out. So anyone can really pick up the hand. They can use the comments area, or they can speak up. Can anyone tell me the answer to the first question? How do we navigate to the replace command? A, home, editing, find and select replace. B, Control F in the replace tab. C, Control H, or D, all of the above. Anyone want to give it a try? Let me
Control F.
Okay, Control F. Well, please choose from one of the answers: A, B, C, or D. Which one is the one?
B.
Okay, you say B, Jared. So anyone else want to give it a try? Let me just have a look at I'm just going to temporarily stop sharing. I just want to see. Oh, Manoj, yes, sorry, your hand is up. Tell me, please. Okay, option D.
Is it option D?
Jared. Yes, it is option D. That is correct. All right, so right, it is option D, all of the above. You can navigate to the replace tab. Replace tab by the home tab, editing, group, find and select drop down, and go to replace. You can also go to Control F and then you go to the replace tab. You can also use the Control H shortcut and get to the replace tab. All right, so all of the above is correct. Thanks, Manoj, for that. All right, let's look at the next one. What can the name box do for us? A, only tells us in which cell we have selected with our mouse cursor. B, only allows us to make a data selection. C, only allows us to define a named range. Or D, all of the above. Derek, you say D, and that is correct, Derek. So all of the above, the name box will tell us in which cell we have selected with our mouse cursor. It is also allowing us to make a data selection. Remember, we can enter starting point, so a cell reference, the colon symbol, and an ending point, and push enter, and it allows us to select the data. C only allows us to define a named range. Yes, it can also do that. You select the data, you type in the name box, and you push enter, and you get your particular result as a defined name. All right, so not a problem there. Right, next one. If I wanted to select cells A1 to A100 and selected cell A1, which keyboard key combination would work to select up to and including A100? Control Shift left arrow, Control Shift right arrow, Control Shift up arrow, Control Shift down arrow, or none of the above. Right, let's see. Derek again, it is D. Yes, it is correct. D is the correct answer. Nirmala, yes, that is correct. D is also the right answer. Control Shift and down is the keyboard key selection combination we would use. Right, it is a means of very quickly selecting your data from starting point to ending point. We can click and drag A1 to A100. It might take some time. Remember, I said in the last video that try to find the fastest way to do something. In the previous video, I showed you various ways to select the data. Right? You won't be necessarily tested on a method. Right? I'm just making you aware of it, right? Because in the exam you don't have a lot of time. Right? You want to find something fast. You want to try to get used to a certain method. So I showed you all possible ways of selecting. You can click and drag. You can use Control Shift down. You can use the name box. Right? All different mechanisms. Right? True or false? When defining a name in the name box, you need to use underscore to replace a space. A, true, or B, false. Right, let's see. A lot of quick answers. Jared, A. Right, anyone else? Derek, A. Right. Shaylin, A. Right. So that is correct. Right. A is the right answer. You have to use an underscore to replace a space. No spaces allowed when defining a name. So we used the word product subcategory last week as a possible name to define a certain range. So we had to use product underscore subcategory because spaces are not allowed. Excuse me, right? To where do I navigate if I want to insert a hyperlink behind my text in a cell? A, insert links, and then link. B, right-click cell, link. C, Control K. D, A and B. E, A, B, and C. That's a bit of a tricky one. All right, let's see who's giving the first answer. C. All right, let's see. Okay. Anyone else? All right, I'm going to take this one and then Nirmala, E. All right, let's see. That is correct, Nirmala. Very good, actually. So I threw in Control K because Control K is a shortcut to get a hyperlink. Now, how do I know Control K is a hyperlink? Well, I could have Googled that. I could have used Excel help. However, we can make use of screen tips without actually searching for the shortcut. How do I know what is a shortcut for a certain command? So yes, A, B, and C, insert links, insert tab, the links group, and the link command. Or B, right-click the cell and you click on the link command. And C, Control K also gets you that. All right, that is definitely correct. Well done. True or false, you can insert a hyperlink behind a cell to link it to a defined name. A, true, B, or false. Right, Manoj, true. Right, that is correct. Let me see here. Nirmala, also true. Yes, so you can add a hyperlink behind for a defined name. So you can click on the cell, it will jump to a certain defined name, and you will be able to very quickly navigate to that defined name. I consider it as a more friendlier method of navigating, right? Friendlier meaning, well, I could easily add a named range, but what if somebody doesn't know what the name box is, right? To select a name range, we can easily add a hyperlink to tell them, okay, great, you can select this word, and you'll be able to jump to a very specific location. Right, the last question here, which is really an explanation that you must provide. If you want to speak up, you can speak up, or you can type it in the comments box. What is a screen tip? If you want to use Google, if you want to use Excel help, all good, that's fine. But technically, you should be,
I think it's you get those tips when you your mouse, your arrow points to specific things, and then you get a pop-up screen that comes and basically tells you what it's for or something like that.
Yes. That's correct, Nirmala. Very good. Jared message box telling you more about the feature. Yes, that is correct. Manoj, screen tip is a brief description of the link or what the parameters outline refers to. That is correct. Jared, yes, a button. Derek, if you hover your mouse over a specific object or button, a screen tip will appear to explain the function. These are all correct. Definitely, that's what a screen tip is all about. Right, my answer that I have here, it is a small box or window that pops up when hovering your mouse cursor over a command or hyperlink. It provides the user a description or a hint of the command or what is behind the hyperlink. Right, very useful. It is good practice to add a screen tip for behind every link that you have. If you're inserting hyperlinks, it really just tells the user what everything's about. We don't want people to be clicking on random links and then their computer becomes a target of some sort of cyber attack, right? So in the exam, you might be asked for a screen tip. Right? You need to know you push that button, screen tip, put in the text, and push OK, and you have your screen tip all ready to go. Right, so that's it. Thank you for that. We're not going to go through everything that we did last week. We went through that in the quiz. Please watch my video if you want to know what I actually went through. And we are going to continue with the Contoso inventory file, which is in the Manage Worksheets and Workbooks folder, and within the folder called Format Worksheets and Workbooks plus Configure Content for Collaboration. All right, so it is a separate Contoso inventory file in a Format Worksheets and Workbooks folder. Right. If for any reason, I'm a bit too fast, you can tell me to slow down. I do suggest, though, look at the video again when I upload it in your own time. Work through it slowly at your own pace, right? Because we do have to finish off by 11 o'clock South African time. Right. So I've got the links in this particular file. All the hyperlinks have been put in place for the named ranges, for the email address, for the web link. This is just a data source of random sales for various computer equipment, maybe for items in a warehouse, right? Some sort of inventory that we have. Contoso is a fictitious company that Microsoft have set up, right? And I'm free to use this data, right? And yes, it's fictitious, so it's not really going to be used in real life. So what are we talking about in Format Worksheets and Workbooks, which is our next exam objective? If I just show this page again, where we're looking at modifying page setup, adjusting row heights and column width, customizing headers and footers. And with this section, I'm pretty much going to be combining a whole lot of things together. Right, the next couple of subtopics of customizing options, etc. It's all going to be really talked about in this lesson. We'll see how far we can actually go with that. So what is this all about? We are talking a lot about the structure. So setting up the Excel workbook or worksheet for printing, for electronic viewing, making it very easy for us to really work through the worksheet or workbook. Right, so we want to maybe space out our columns. We want to make sure things are fitting correctly. We want to make it optimized for printing. Right, so lots to do just maybe to clean it up in terms of making it look very nice, making it look pretty easy to read, easy to understand. All right, so we want to prepare, first of all, this document or this worksheet for printing. So we want to go through the various methods of maybe resizing our columns, resizing some of our rows, right? Some of the rows look very squashed. Maybe it looks, maybe it can be spaced out quite a bit, so it's easy to read, easy to understand. So we might want to adjust column widths first. Right, so how do I go adjust column widths in the Home tab? Right, so I can go to the Home tab, and in my cells group, I have 3 commands: insert, delete, and format. I can go to the format dropdown, and under the cell size area, I have column width, auto column width, and default width. Right, so in the exam, you may be asked to specify a certain column width for 1 or more columns. You may also be asked to auto-fit column width. And they may not ask you directly to auto-fit column width. For the exam, they love asking you synonyms, right? So a good idea to maybe brush up on your knowledge on synonyms, where they can use an alternative word to describe an Excel command, right? To show that you know what, to test you if you know what they're talking about. So if you're saying auto fit column width, they could possibly use a synonym or a phrase or a sentence where they say, please ensure that all the columns fit the longest text. Right, so all the columns should be fitting the longest text. What does that mean? Make sure that every single column literally is long enough that the longest text in that cell fits inside. Right, so they won't tell you directly, take column A, B, and C and go and auto fit it. Right, they won't do that. You might get a question like that, but from my experience from telling others, you will be getting a sentence or a question that will tell you to do that, right, in another way, but you must know where to go, right? So you must just be prepared for any sort of question. I think towards the end of the course, I will, I'm going to just try to make some questions. Right? It's very tricky to actually prepare for a MOS, Microsoft Office Specialist exam, because there aren't really any practice exams available, because the whole exam is practical. You have to know Excel really well because they can throw anything at you. But I will come up with possible questions, right? I'll try to prepare you with synonyms, with various ways in which questions can be asked. So it gives you some idea, it makes it a little bit comfortable. Right, so we want to, first of all, try with column A. Right, so with column A, if I scroll down, I can see A57, A65, A72 is probably not fitting. One of the first ways I can really make this bigger is I can move my mouse between A and B, the column headers A and B, and you can see when you place your mouse cursor over the line, you have a cursor that has a line going down with two arrows in opposite directions. I can click and drag this to the right. Right, I can click and drag it to the right, and I can adjust this particular column, let's say to around a width of 80. Right, so let's drag it quite a bit. We click and drag to a width of 80, 80.16, or just 80.11, whatever it may be. And you have your column expanded. Right, now, the issue with this here, personally, what I have a problem with this, is when you're clicking and dragging a column, you don't know where or what the longest word is. Maybe you have a very long list and you don't know that you will have maybe text that is long enough to a certain point. But if you click and drag, you may be creating extra unnecessary space. Right? So electronically, it might not be a problem to view this, but when you're printing it, the more you click and drag to the right, the more space you're creating, which will then result in data falling off the page. Right? So we don't really want to click and drag in practice. Right? In the exam, they may ask you to click and drag very carefully until a specific width. Right? They can do that. They have asked that before. I have seen that myself. So we may want to practice clicking and dragging very carefully. I'm not a fan of that because our mouse can slip. We can click and drag too much or too little, and so we may just want to still make sure we can do that very carefully. I suggest you do not use your laptop trackpad or mouse pad to do that. It's very difficult. You may be very used to it, but it is very difficult to do that. In the exam, you'll have access to a USB wired mouse, so get used to that on a wired mouse. All right, so we rather want to maybe make it fit automatically. So what I could do, I can go between A and B on that line, double click, right? When I double click on that line, it will automatically find the longest word or sentence or phrase for me and make sure that it stops at that longest word, and anything else which has fewer characters will automatically fit. So the double clicking method between the two column headers works. It is not efficient though if you have multiple columns. You do not want to be going through different columns and double clicking, and double clicking. It just doesn't really work out very well. It's not fast enough. Yes, you can get the work done. In the exam, you don't have that time to go and double click 5, 6 columns, right? You need to find faster ways to do all those things there. So what we want to really do is maybe we want to accurately provide some sort of measurement, right, for multiple columns, right? So we might be given in the exam a number. It will tell you, please resize all the columns to this specific measurement, right? The column space measurement is not really something we can, put some sort of measurement unit to it. So there's no imperial metric unit of measurement here. It's using pixels, right? But we don't also get pixels much. It will just be the number on its own. So let us try to do that with column C. So column C, we want to just expand it a little bit. So if I want column C to be a specific width, I can select column C. How do I select column C? I don't need to do a Control-Shift down anywhere. I want to select the entire column. Right? So I move my mouse over the letter C, alphabet letter C. I have an arrow pointing downwards. I can click once, left click once on column C. I can go to the Home tab, Cells Group, Format drop-down, and then choose the command, choose the button, choose what setting that you see here called column width. Right? I'm not sure if the box is displaying on your side. I did see the recording previously that certain boxes don't appear correctly. Right? If you don't see the box, what should you see on your screen is a box that says column width, and it's asking you to put in some sort of number. So let's try to put in a number such as 20,29 or 20.29. Now it's important that you specify the correct decimal symbol here. Right? I might tell you to say 20.29, 20,29. How do I know what is my decimal symbol? Well, if you look at the currency values in your spreadsheet, right? You should see the rands and the cents or the dollars and the cents, and whatever symbol is being used there, please make use of the same symbol in this box here. All right. So if it's 20,29, use 20,29. 20.29. It will give you an error if you try to use the wrong symbol. It won't recognize it. On my computer, it is 20,29, and then I just push OK, and the column will automatically resize according to that measurement you provided of 20,29. If you tried a different symbol, to give you an error that it doesn't understand what needs to happen there. So if it's not that symbol, try the other symbol. It will either be a comma or a full stop, depending on how your machine has been set up. In the ideal sense, it should be set up according to your country. Right? So if your country uses the full stop for decimal symbol, your IT department or whoever set up your computer will set it up as the full stop. If it's comma, I know in English South Africa, the regional settings, it's mostly comma. It can be full stop depending on the applications you're using. All right, so more of that when I come to formulas and functions, right? I'll briefly talk about that. It's important because when we do calculations, we have to follow the rules. We have to follow the way formulas and functions work. And then if you get your comma or full stop wrong, you will result it will result in a wrong answer or maybe just an error. Right, so we could resize by clicking and dragging. We could resize by selecting the column format, column width, specifying the actual column width. Right, if we want to adjust the column width for multiple columns at the same time, right, we can also do that. Right, we might be asked to do that more than maybe specific columns. And so let's say we want to adjust columns E to columns I. Right, so columns E to columns I must be adjusted to a very specific width. So if I want to select more than one column, I can click and hold down my left mouse button, right, on letter E, and click and drag across to letter I. Right, so we're still selecting the entire column, no control shift down over here, but starting at E, move your mouse over alphabet letter E. You see an arrow pointing downwards. Click and hold down your left button on your mouse. Click and drag across to the letter I. Let go of your mouse. Go to the Format drop-down in the Cells group of the Home tab. Let's go to column width once more. And we are going to make this, I think, 24,87. Right, these are just random numbers. In the exam, you will get random numbers, right? They're not going to maybe tell you exact numbers. They could give you anything. I don't know. They could give you really any number to put in there. So I'm trying to make it as random as possible. So when you put 24,87, then you will see that every single column has been adjusted to a width of 24,87 or 0.87. How do I know that? How do I know this actually works? Well, if you move your mouse over the column, the border between the column headers, between E and F, if I click and hold down my mouse and I just hold it, right? You just hold it, right? Mine's slightly off. It says 24.89, right? I might have moved my mouse slightly. That's why it actually shows me that measurement, right? So I think my mouse did move slightly, or might have pushed the wrong button. Should show you exact measurement of 87 or 89. In the exam, you don't need to worry if it's a little bit off, right? In the exam, it will actually work, right? So if it tells you to do 24.87 in the exam and you did that, it will register as that, right? The exam will register that you went to column width, you specified 24.87, and you pushed OK, and that should be enough. You don't need to go and double check, right? I'll tell you now for column width, don't try and double check, because in the exam you might accidentally move the columns whilst checking, right? And a slight movement in your mouse for adjusting column width might result in your answer as being wrong, right? So when you are told to specify a column width, just type in the number by going to Format, column width, type in the number, push OK, and that's it, right? It will be right, right? You can't go, you can't really go wrong then unless you type the wrong number, right? If you do type the wrong number, you can undo, right? But also closer to the end of this course, when I talk about what is the exam environment like, I'll talk to you about that. Try not to undo, try to rather restart the question, right? Because if you register an undo, it might register the undo as a correct answer, right? Whereas you're merely trying to correct a mistake, right? And the exam might not consider that as a correct question. So you may want to restart the question rather than trying to undoing it, right? So that was multiple columns, right? Clicking and dragging alphabet letters, and we try to do that, right? So we could use auto fit column width as well, all right? So if I wanted to do that, let's say column B, I can select column B here, move my mouse over column B and go to the format drop down, choose auto fit column width, right? And that will automatically make sure that the longest text fits in automatically, right? So this is the single mouse click button or setting that that will replace the double clicking between the column headers. Remember in column A, I double clicked between A and B. If I don't want to double click, I can do it the long method, which is also maybe slightly more assuring, where I can go to the drop down for the format command and choose auto fit column width, right? And that will do the same or achieve the same effect as if you double clicking between two columns. All right, so know all these methods, right? So know all of them: clicking and dragging multiple columns and then selecting a column width, or using auto fit. Right? They can ask anything. They can really ask any of these, and you may have to adjust your specific columns. Right? Just as we did with columns, we might have to do the same thing with the rows. Let me just double check. Nothing in the chat. Great. Right. So with rows here, we may be asked to specify a row width. Sorry, that's the incorrect term. It's rather a row height, right? Column width, row height is what we have over here. We may need to make these rows slightly spaced out so it's easy to read, because right now it looks kind of squashed together. So if I want to adjust a row height, right, let's try a bulk range here. So we want to try A9 to A1698. Right, so there's no real quick way to get this selected. I could use Control Shift down and do that, but a more correct way to see that, to show that you understand that you're making a bulk change, a major change in the row height, you want to move your mouse over row number 9, right, where you then have an arrow pointing to the right, and then on top of that you're going to click and drag down, right, all the way down to A1698, which is the end of the data. Right, so I'm just going to go down right to the end. It is probably a bit excessive, this range that I selected, right? But if it has to be, if the row height has to be different, then we may want to select all the data. Right, so then we have this consistent look across the board. So I clicked and dragged all the way down to A1698. I can go to Format. I can go to Row Height. And let's specify a row height of 18. Right, just 18 on its own. And then when I push OK, push Enter, now all my rows have the same height. Right, so that's our adjusting our row and column, row height, column width. Anyone have any questions with this? Any comments, clarifications? Right, anything you'd like to know specifically? Otherwise, we just move on, have a look at the video. If you have a query, you can drop me a mail, you can contact me via the social media channels, and we can take it up from there. Pretty straightforward here. Right, quickly see this. So if we want to now maybe start adjusting this properly for printing, right? So we got this, we got all the columns maybe in order. It might be spaced out quite a bit, right? So we'll talk about that in a moment when we talk about printing in greater detail. We want to go and look at how many pages this will turn out to be when printing it. So if I go to File, Print, now in the exam they won't tell you to actually print something, but they will tell you to adjust settings, right? So if you go File, Print, because then all of the buttons that you push here will also be registered in the exam. So File, Print, right now when I've adjusted all my columns and rows, I get a number of 172 pages. Right? How do I know how many pages I have? Bottom left-hand corner in your File Print area. So just to take a step back, I did go to the File tab. I pushed the File tab. I pushed the Print command on the left-hand side, right? And I have the Print settings on the left. I have the Print button. And on the right-hand side, I have a preview. At the bottom left-hand side corner, I have the number of pages where it says 1 of 172. You could have some other number as well, right? But it is a really ridiculous number. If you were to print this as it is, you're not going to really get this fitting very well, right? So it's going to waste a lot of paper. We are going to now adjust this as best as we can to accommodate a couple of things. Right? So you need to pay a bit of attention here. We're optimizing it for printing. Now, in the exam, they may ask you to optimize it in a very certain way. Right? I'm going to go through various settings here. I wouldn't know which settings exactly they will ask you, but it's a good idea to know all of them in the best way to possibly optimize this for printing. And this is also great for general knowledge, right? If you have a worksheet like this, if you need to print something like this, what is the best way to print this? Right. It's an opinion I'm going to give as something I've been doing all this time, how I teach it. And so there is no real one solution that we have here. There could be multiple ways depending on your audience, depending on your choice here. So 172 pages is out of the question, obviously. We're going to go through a couple of these settings on the left-hand side to see what I can possibly do here. So you have your print button, you have the number of copies, you have the printer that you can select. You may be asked to print to PDF, right? In the exam, export as PDF, print to PDF. You might get you may be asked in a certain way, make it a PDF, right? They will use the word the abbreviation PDF somewhere. I haven't seen them using another word. They could use XPS, right? Where you have to export it. If I go to the export command, create PDF or XPS document, they may ask you that. But usually it is a print to PDF. It's a more commonly used command over here. In the settings, what do we have? Well, excuse me there. We might have to print active sheets. We might have to print the entire workbook, print a selection, print the selected table. Right, so active sheets mean whatever sheet I'm currently working on. I'm working on the All Products worksheet. This is the sheet I want to print. Right, I may be asked to print the entire workbook, which means every single worksheet, every single page of this workbook here needs to be printed. I may be asked to print a selection only. What does a selection mean? So if I click and drag over a specific area in my worksheet, and I go File Print, and I choose Print Selection, only whatever I selected with my mouse, whatever I clicked and dragged, will be printed. Right, not really going to be working for us over here because we want to print everything in this particular worksheet. So Print Active Sheets is the one I'd like to print. Number of pages, well, we still want to make sure we print everything, so it's not specific at the moment. In the exam, they now ask you to specify a range. Only print pages 5 to 10. Right, so you put in the number 5 here, put in the number 10, and you have set it up to only print a very specific amount of pages. Okay, collating. Right, collating and uncollating, very underutilized function. Probably uncollated is not very utilized. Right, so what uncollated means, or maybe I can ask this actually to everybody in this meeting. Anyone use uncollate before? Anyone think what uncollate means? You can use the comment area, you can speak up. Maybe you've seen someone use it. I've used it once or twice. Not a very popular option, right? But maybe from the hint that it's giving you, it says 111222333. What is that doing? What is it telling us, and why? Why would we want to do this? Anyone want to give it a try? Right. In the exam, they may ask you to set it to uncollate. Yes, you can very easily set it to uncollate, but it's sometimes a good idea to know why you're actually doing that. What is really the point of uncollate? Anyone want to give it a try?
I suppose that's if you don't want your documents collated, I mean, you don't want them set in sheets of like 1, 2, 3 kind of thing. You want separate documents, maybe as handouts or something. So probably you're giving 3 people the the first sheet or something, and the others maybe you're doing something different, like a team exercise or something. You might want to just give them specific sheets only.
Yeah, all right. That is a possible use case, right? I'll talk about a most common use case that we have for collating is in an environment where you have a company secretary, and this company secretary is organizing a meeting, or a meeting has been organized, and every attendee needs to have a meeting pack, right? So this meeting pack comprises of a lot of documents put in a very specific order. So uncollate allows you to put your documents in a very specific order after it has printed. So it will print out all the page 1s first, all the page 2s, all the page 3s, and then you can choose the order you like. Right. So because if you want the cover page to go first, then you want the minutes of the meeting, then you want you want the agenda, then the minutes of the meeting, and then a whole lot of other things after that, then you would choose uncollate. You don't really want to choose collate and then remove the ordering and then redo the ordering. Right? That's a lot of extra work. So collating will print multiple copies of a document in a very specific order, whereas uncollate will only print all the page 1s, 2s, and 3s, etc., and then you choose the order. Right? So please make sure that when you choose uncollate that you don't switch on the option of stapling. Right? So if your machine can automatically staple and you choose to staple, then you're going to be stapling all the page 1s together, and that's really then counterproductive. So you collate will automatically do that for you, but uncollate, yes, remember to switch off the staple option. But that's not going to really help us here. Right? So let us continue. Portrait may or the orientation really, right? Do we want it portrait or landscape? So I'll just show you on the screen here. Do I want it portrait? Do I want it landscape? Right. So we want to change the direction of the text, direct maybe the page layout, if you want to use those terms. We may want to choose landscape here. Right, so landscape might be the way to go because I have more columns rather than, well, I do have more rows, but I am using a lot of columns. So it may make more sense to actually put it landscape. Right, I already see as I made it landscape, the number of pages increased on mine. So what I probably need to do, now this is just for this exercise. I'm not, this is not for the exam as such. I'm just going to make my column width for the to auto fit, right? So we don't have anything that's any extra space being used. Right, I will see if that makes any difference. Okay, not really. Okay, it did on my side. From my side, it went to 264 to 198. So that's a good thing. So landscape is something you may want to choose. Page size A4, right? If it's something different, you can choose from here. We don't really change that unless you are using a different sized paper. You may want to change margins, right? Not really recommended though, right? Because the margins are the areas in which you can have extra text, but it's also the area in which the printer has to know where the text really starts and stops. We don't want to utilize the margin too much because then if you're printing, the ink or whatever printer you're using may then have the text run over onto another page, and then you have ink leaking or things cut off. Right? So I don't really adjust margins if really necessary. We could change that to a narrow margin, all right? Hasn't really changed much on my side. You could keep it to normal, because then you're making space to punch the document after you have printed it, maybe stapling it, right? So you have that extra space available. In the exam, they may ask you to specify a certain margin. So you would go to this drop down, go to custom margins, and they may give you certain measurements to put in, right? And so because the exam takes place on a machine that is set in the US, it might be in inches. They might give you centimeters as well, right? They'll give you both measurements depending on the environment you have, and you would have to then specify. It will tell you specifically, make sure that this top margin is this unit of measurement, the bottom is this much, the left is this much, the right is this much. They may ask you to do that. All right, so just ensure that if you need to put in specific measurements, it will be under the custom margins area. But in the last setting that we have here is called scaling. Right, so how I refer to scaling in all my lessons is when you need to take a picture. Let's look at your camera phone. You have a smartphone. You need to take a picture. And when you need to take a picture, a selfie, whatever it may be, how do we zoom in and out? Right? So when we zoom in and out, we usually use the pinch zoom effect. We zoom in and zoom out. Right? So scaling can be seen as something similar. When you want to zoom out to see everything fit on one page, right? Or you want to see a bird's eye view, or maybe a top view of everything. So we're zooming out to see everything, or zooming in to see very specific things. Right? That's how I refer scaling to be. Right? We changing some overall effect on how we're looking at this data. So we could go through a couple of these options. The fit sheet on one page, not really going to work for us. Right? It tries really hard to fit everything on one page. I still get 7 pages. Right? Might seem economical, but you're losing out on legibility. Right? You're wasting a lot of space as well. So fit sheet on one page is not really the best way to go for this. Fit all columns on one page. That might be the best at the moment, right? Because I have columns which have very long text. I might need to reduce the text, all right? So that's something I might need to think about. But let's say this is what I have here. This is the information I have to type out. In my opinion, this is the best way or optimized view of the document you can that you wish to print. Right, 24 pages on my side. Your columns are fitting. Why do you want to make sure columns are fitting? Well, I'm just going to show you briefly on this on the camera. We don't want to really join 2 pages like this when I'm reading. Right, so I don't want to keep 2 landscape pages side by side to read my column. That's really not the way to go. I don't want to be reading like that. Let's say I want to try to fit all my columns so I can see my columns on one page, but let my rows overflow. It's okay to let the rows overflow, right? So I can't really do anything about that. Otherwise, I have a problem of legibility. But the one thing we may want to adjust here, because what happens when I go into page 2, I can see that my column headers have disappeared. All right, so I don't also want to take 2 pages and then put them underneath each other to see what my column headers are. All right, because then I can refer to a certain column and I don't know what the column is about. What I want to do is I want to make sure that the column headers are repeated on every single page. All right, so this is the setting that you may need to know for the exam. Right, I've been asked it as well, where we have to repeat the row headers on every single page. Right, there's multiple ways to do that. You could, from this window here, jump to page setup. Right, jump to page setup, and you can then go to the sheet tab. So you'll get a window popping up first. It will show you the page setup window. It has multiple tabs called page, margins, header and footer, and sheet, right? And you would then see the specific settings that you may need to adjust here, right? We will see that we may not be able to adjust certain things here because I have to really go back into my normal view, right? So I would have to go back. I click the back arrow at the top left-hand corner, and then from here, I can go to the page layout tab at the top. In the page setup group, I'm looking for a button or a command on the right-hand side called print titles. And what is the screen tip telling us? The screen tip is telling us choose rows and columns you'd like to repeat on each printed page, such as those with labels or headers. Right, so print titles is the one I want to choose here, right? And it will show you that same window as we saw just now a moment ago. And I'm in the sheet tab. I want to go to the setting that says print titles, specifically rows to repeat at top. All right, so when I click in that box, rows to repeat at top, it's asking me which rows would you like to use. So as soon as you select inside that box and move your mouse cursor out of the box, it's going to tell you, please select rows only. Your mouse cursor will change to an arrow pointing to the right, which means you're only allowed to select rows here. So how do I select rows? We would hover our mouse over the number 1, row number 1 on the left-hand side, click and drag down, and select rows A1 to A8, right? Because that's really the header. That is really, I want to make sure that the logo appears on every page. I want to make sure the URL and the email address and the name of the worksheet to appear on every page, especially the headings, the product name, product description, etc. And what do we get inside this little box? It says $1 to $8. Right, so we'll come to dollar signs when we look at formulas and functions. Right, what does it mean right now? What does $sign mean here? You are locking down rows 1 to 8 to appear on every single page. The $sign means we're locking down something, keeping something constant, keeping something fixed. Those are all various terms we could use. And now what could I do from here? I push OK to accept the changes. I go to File, I go to Print, and now if I look at page 2, page 3, etc., you should see your headers appear on every single page. So if you didn't know this, well done, now you know how to use it. How do you repeat your headers on every single page? You may be asked to do that in the exam, right? It's a very common question to test your skills, that you know how to adjust your page settings or your worksheet settings to accommodate column headers on every single page here. All right, so I just want to see, because we have run out of time, but that should be it for now that we talk about. So any questions with this specific setting? Like I said, please look at the video. It might have been overwhelming. Have a look at it again, and then maybe next time we can address that, or you can contact me privately for that. Right, but I'm not going to continue with anything further. We'll carry on in the next lesson. I will make it a point to make sure that we receive our streaming links early and the messages early, so then you can register on time, because I think a lot of people got the links late. Right, but otherwise, thank you for attending today's lesson. I hope it was inspiring. Hopefully it helped you, whether it's just for general skills, as well as now continuing our preparation for the Excel exam. Right, so we will meet next time, same place, next week, Monday, and we will continue with the lesson.